Hello and welcome. We are in Sao Paulo for the Brasil Investment Forum, which is a very high-profile, big event organized by the Brazilian government and the Inter-American Development Bank. I'm here with the IDB's president, Luis Alberto Moreno, so thank you so much for being with me. Earlier this morning, you opened the event and you shared the stage with a number of government officials, including Brazil's president, Michel Temer. And the message that was very clearly delivered is that although the political scandal that has engulfed the whole of the country now has reached the president, is still here, reforms will go ahead, which is a very important, of course, message to deliver to an audience back with investors. Now, how do you see the role of the IDB and other international organizations in supporting the country's development?
Well, we are, first of all, very happy to be part of this event. I think this is the kind of event Brazil needed because more than anything else, you know, when countries go through situations like you just described, you really need a shock of confidence. And if you are objectively looking at certainly in the crisis in the past that Brazil went through, here is a country today with over $300 billion in foreign reserves, a country that for the last 2 months has had current account surpluses, where the massive amounts of foreign investment are coming. It only points to the fact that at the end, this continues to be one of the largest economies in the world with huge opportunity. It is true that it's not a country for beginners, but it is equally true that I think today the larger part of Brazilians, at least it's all the manifestations that you heard this morning, not just from the president, but equally from the president of the House and the Senate, is that there is, as you mentioned, a very strong commitment to reforms. And these are not easy reforms. We're talking about Social Security, we're talking about labor reforms. In any country in the world, within a democratic context, these are all tough things to decide and to move ahead. And I saw, as everybody saw, a real commitment from all the interested parties. And at the same time, even though we are, as you mentioned, in a peak of the political crisis, for this event, we had no cancellations. That only demonstrates that there is a profound interest in the kind of sophisticated investors that come to a conference like this, which are not looking at the next semester, but rather at the next number of years where they will either be in Brazil or continue to be in Brazil or perhaps increase their own presence in Brazil.
And so you have just increased your own presence in Brazil, opening an office in Sao Paulo, in addition to the one that you have in Brasilia. So in Brasilia, you're close to the political powers. Here, you will be close to the private sector. Sao Paulo being, of course, Brazil's key international financial center. How do you plan to act on this new office?
Well, certainly what we have been seeing is there is a huge potential, especially in the so-called private-public partnerships around the infrastructure. Some of the 32-plus infrastructure projects that are being bid out, as you know, some of them already were with a tremendous interest on the airports. There's a lot of things that will be happening in transport, broadly defined, in energy. And we want to be a part of precisely helping on the development aspect. We're not a commercial bank, but rather we hope that we can bring our expertise and our lending to help boost the level of confidence that others can come. And we look at ourselves as not only that every dollar that we put in, but rather who comes alongside with us, such that we can mobilize far more resources. So we're optimistic of what we're seeing. We have seen just from the numbers of people that we've talked in this conference, but over the last number of months since we consolidated all our private sector windows, that there is real opportunity here in Brazil, and we want to be part of it and be part of it at the right time, because if anything, we ought to be counter-cyclical.
Now, something else that will happen at this event is the official launch of the China-Brazil Investment Fund, which will be looking to invest in infrastructure, and there is a capital that has been placed next to it of $20 billion, 15 of them coming from China. The IDB also has investment relations with China. How important is China as an investment and partner to Brazil?
Well, I think it's certainly the country where there is a lot of interest on the side of the Chinese government and the Chinese private sector. It is no surprise that they're putting the kind of commitment they're putting here. I mean, a $20 billion fund is not a small fund in any economy. We, for instance, have China as a shareholder. They've been almost for the last 10 years. We've developed a set of co-financing lines, one of them coming from SAFE, which is their central bank reserves of $2 billion. We're looking to replenish that fund. We're equally working after the big meeting of the One Belt, One Road with the Silk Road Fund, and equally with the CLAY Fund, which focuses solely on Latin America. These are all resources that are directed at the private sector, which will be, of course, of very high importance for public-private partnerships. Broadly defined, I think today, especially in South America, you have countries like Brazil, like Peru, like Chile, like Argentina, where today China is the main trading partner. But having said that, I think China, with its huge amount of capital reserves, can also become a huge source of financing for Latin American governments. And we still need to import capital from the world to the rate of about 4% of GDP for the whole of Latin America. So China is important. I think these resources certainly can be put to good use. When one talks about infrastructure, these are all gains in productivity that you will see as a result of those investments.
Very well. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Moreno, and best of luck for the rest of the event, which will be very interesting.
Thank you very much.